Hello, my name is Jenny. I am a student of English literature, and this is my story, a story of learning, exploring, and discovering the joy of English. Today, I want to share my journey with you, my experiences, and the methods that helped me improve. You can read my story, and at the same time, learn English with me. It was a beautiful summer day when I found myself traveling on a train. Two women were sitting opposite me, speaking English. I listened carefully, trying to catch words I recognized. At that time, my English was very basic. I didn't know many words, and I struggled to understand. Despite this, I gathered courage and began to speak to the women, saying a few simple words in English. To my delight, they understood me. That small moment of being understood filled me with happiness and motivation. I told them that I wanted to learn English, and they shared that they were from England, returning home from a conference. Our conversation lasted 10 minutes, and when my station arrived, we said goodbye. Before leaving, they gave me their address and phone number, inviting me to visit them in England. That encounter sparked something in me. From that day onward, I dedicated myself to learning English. I translated texts, watched English films, and practiced every single day. Within 6 months, my English improved considerably, but I knew I wanted more. I decided to go to London to study English more seriously. When I arrived, I joined a language school. My first lesson was on a Monday. I met my teacher and fellow students. She was a young, kind, and humble lady, and her presence immediately put me at ease. We introduced ourselves, and then she began the lesson. She asked us about our general knowledge of the English language and explained that she could teach us through a highly effective and simple method. She told us that we wouldn't need to rely heavily on textbooks, but rather we would use English actively in our daily lives. This approach resonated with me instantly. I had always found textbooks confusing and dull. The idea of learning through practice, communication, and real-life usage was exactly what I needed. During our lessons, we discussed the essence of language. Our teacher emphasized that language is not merely a set of rules or words, it is a tool for communication, a way to express ideas and thoughts. The best way to learn a language, she explained, is to use it actively, to communicate with others, and to express feelings. She stressed that students often make the mistake of studying words and grammar without applying them. Memorizing alone does not help. Practice and usage do. Her course was designed to show a very simple, practical method for learning both vocabulary and grammar. From that moment, I felt excited and motivated. I knew I had found a method that would truly work for me. Our first lessons also included discussions about hobbies and personal interests. We spoke in pairs or with the teacher, sharing what we enjoyed doing in our free time. I found these conversations stimulating and enjoyable. For the first time, learning English felt natural, interactive, and rewarding. Then came Chapter 2 of my journey, learning vocabulary effectively. On a Tuesday, one student asked a question that fascinated me. What is the best way to learn new words? Our teacher smiled and began to explain the most statistically effective method, reading. She told us that reading helps learners acquire new words twice as fast as other methods, and she recommended reading for at least 30 minutes every day. She emphasized that the text must be interesting, fictional or non-fictional, as long as it captured our attention. Reading texts that are dull or too difficult can be frustrating, especially for beginners, and can demotivate learners. When encountering an unknown word, our teacher advised looking it up in a dictionary immediately. Understanding its meaning in context solidifies memory, making it easier to recall in the future. She assured us that there was no need to write the word down obsessively. Repeated exposure and use would naturally cement it in our minds. Reading also has the added benefit of teaching how words connect in sentences. You begin to understand grammar and sentence structure intuitively, without mechanical memorization. This method of learning vocabulary, our teacher said, is highly effective. I tried it, and soon I noticed the difference in my comprehension and confidence. Our lessons also touched on practical matters, like life in England and opportunities for students. I wanted to work part-time, so I asked my classmates where I could find a job. They recommended visiting a local job center, which offered positions suitable for students. I went there and spoke with a friendly lady. She explained that I could work as a cleaner or a waitress at a cafe. Although I had no previous experience, she reassured me that my English skills were sufficient for the cafe job. The training was simple, and the job provided the perfect opportunity to practice English daily. I was thrilled. That Thursday, I would start my first job in England, speaking English in real-world situations and gaining valuable experience. Returning to school on Wednesday, we faced a question that many students share: improving pronunciation. A quiet student from South Korea admitted that although he understood English well, through reading and watching films, he struggled to speak clearly. Our teacher explained that the issue often lies in muscle memory. Speaking English requires different mouth movements than one's native language. To improve, she introduced a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is simple, yet powerful. You listen to native speakers and imitate their sounds repeatedly, just as children learn their first language. By mimicking pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation, learners can gradually achieve clearer, more natural speech. We watched demonstration videos on YouTube and practiced shadowing for a few minutes in class. The method also works excellently for preparing presentations, allowing speakers to practice pronunciation before speaking in front of an audience. After the lesson, I inquired about sports activities at school. I was delighted to discover a table tennis team and a football team. That evening, I joined the football training, meeting players from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. The session was invigorating, and I felt grateful that my time in England had started on such a positive note. I had a supportive teacher, engaging classmates, new friends from football, and a job waiting to help me practice English in everyday life. Thursday morning arrived, and with it, new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to put all I had learned into practice. A new student joined our class that day. Her name was Elizabeth, and she came from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, our teacher engaged Elizabeth in conversation, asking her questions to learn about her previous experience with English. It turned out that Elizabeth had visited our teacher's class 1 year ago during a 2-week summer program for beginners. She spoke beautifully, with clear pronunciation, fluency, and confidence. Our teacher was visibly pleased and commented that Elizabeth must have studied at a good school in Italy. Elizabeth smiled and shook her head. She explained that she did not attend a formal school. Rather, she had learned English largely at home, applying the techniques she had learned in our teacher's class. She read extensively, practiced shadowing, and had embraced a technique called thinking aloud. Elizabeth said that she tried to think in English as much as possible, rather than translating from Italian, and that this consistent practice had transformed her abilities. Her dedication and method were inspiring. 1 year prior, she had been a beginner, yet now she could speak confidently and clearly. She wanted to return to our class, to continue learning, and to refine her skills, demonstrating that commitment and consistent practice are key to progress in language learning. Listening to Elizabeth's story made a profound impression on me. I already knew about reading and shadowing, but thinking aloud was new to me, and I was eager to understand it. I asked our teacher to explain this technique in detail. She smiled, noting that it is both simple and powerful, though it requires strong motivation and commitment to see tangible results. Some learners might even consider it a little unusual at first, but it has been highly effective for many students. She explained that thinking aloud involves taking your inner thoughts, normally expressed in your native language, and vocalizing them in English. Instead of silently translating or rehearsing sentences in your head, you literally speak your thoughts out loud in English. This process accelerates fluency, builds confidence, and reduces the reliance on translation, forcing the brain to process English directly. Our teacher emphasized that at first, it is important to keep sentences simple. Complex ideas or vocabulary should be introduced gradually. The goal is to train the mind to think naturally in English, without reverting to your native language as an intermediary. Motivated by curiosity and determination, I resolved to try this technique immediately. I was willing to embrace what others might call crazy if it would help me speak English more fluently, accurately, and confidently. Elizabeth then shared her personal experience. She admitted that when she first started thinking aloud, she struggled immensely. Simple sentences, which seemed easy now, were difficult at the beginning. She began with phrases like, "I can speak English. It is good that I can speak English. I want to be better. I need to practice every day." Even though these sentences were rudimentary, they were enough to build a foundation. Elizabeth explained that her initial difficulty was in translating long, complex thoughts from Italian into English. She had to simplify her thinking, reduce complex structures, and learn to express ideas clearly in simple English. Over time, however, this practice became natural. The effort transformed her approach to English entirely. Something remarkable happened when she met a man from Australia while still a beginner. They spoke English together, and she realized that she could communicate effectively without translating every word in her head. Her sentences were short and straightforward, but they conveyed her meaning perfectly. This breakthrough solidified the effectiveness of thinking aloud, and Elizabeth continued to practice it daily. Hearing this story reinforced my understanding that language fluency is less about memorizing rules or translating in your head, and more about practicing, thinking, and expressing yourself naturally. I felt inspired to incorporate this method into my own learning routine immediately, confident that it would help me reach new levels of fluency and ease in speaking. Throughout the following days, our lessons continued to emphasize practical communication, vocabulary building, and pronunciation improvement. We practiced reading, listening, speaking, and thinking aloud in tandem. Our teacher encouraged us to dedicate 40 minutes each day to each of these activities, forming a well-rounded, balanced approach to language learning. Reading helped us acquire new words and understand their contextual relationships, while listening provided exposure to pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. Shadowing allowed us to mimic native speakers, refining our accents and speech patterns, and thinking aloud gave us the confidence to express thoughts naturally, without hesitation or reliance on translation. The combination of these methods created a powerful synergy. I noticed significant improvements in comprehension, vocabulary retention, and fluency within just a few weeks. Each activity reinforced the others. Words learned from reading appeared in my spoken sentences, phrases I shadowed were used in conversations, and thinking aloud strengthened my ability to construct coherent and natural sentences spontaneously. At school, I also enjoyed discussing hobbies, cultural differences, and real-life situations with classmates from diverse backgrounds. Conversations were no longer intimidating. I shared my ideas, listened to theirs, and gradually became comfortable using English in all contexts. One afternoon, we discussed the best jobs for students in England. I learned from classmates and teachers that the job centre offered many opportunities, and soon after, I began my position at a cafe. Every interaction at work, taking orders, speaking with customers, and collaborating with colleagues, became an additional practice ground for English. It was immersive learning at its finest. The joy of applying classroom lessons in real-life situations cannot be overstated. Each encounter, each conversation, reinforced what I had studied and boosted my confidence. Beyond school and work, I also joined sports activities, which allowed me to meet people from different countries and practice English in informal, relaxed settings. Football training was particularly enjoyable. The team included players from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. Communicating with them, sharing strategies, and celebrating small victories on the field created opportunities for natural, spontaneous English usage. Language, I realized, is not confined to textbooks or classrooms. It lives in interactions, relationships, and experiences. My teacher's advice rang true. To learn English, one must use it actively, integrate it into daily life, and embrace every opportunity to communicate. As weeks passed, my vocabulary expanded, my pronunciation improved, and my confidence grew. Shadowing and thinking aloud became daily habits, embedded in my routine. I noticed subtle but significant changes. I no longer hesitated when forming sentences. I could participate in discussions without translating from Italian first. The thoughts flowed directly in English. I began thinking in English naturally, and the clarity and immediacy of my expressions improved tremendously. Reading, listening, shadowing, and thinking aloud had become more than techniques. They were a way of life. Elizabeth's story and guidance had shown me the value of dedication, persistence, and smart methods. Her example inspired me to push myself further, to experiment with new strategies, and to continually seek improvement. I realized that language learning is a journey, not a destination. Each day brought new challenges, discoveries, and opportunities to grow. By the end of my time in London, I could see remarkable progress. My English was no longer limited to short sentences or basic vocabulary. I could hold conversations, express opinions, understand subtle nuances, and participate fully in discussions. More importantly, I had developed habits that would sustain continued growth long after leaving school. Language learning, I had learned, is not about shortcuts. It is about consistent practice, active usage, and the willingness to think and speak in the language itself. Every reading session, every shadowing exercise, every moment spent thinking aloud had built the foundation for fluency. I felt empowered and ready to continue my journey, confident that the methods I had learned were both practical and effective. In conclusion, my experience in London taught me invaluable lessons about learning English. Meeting native speakers, immersing myself in the language, applying classroom knowledge in real life, practicing pronunciation, reading actively, shadowing effectively, and thinking aloud transformed my skills. Motivation, persistence, and intelligent practice proved more effective than rote memorization or passive learning. I had discovered a holistic, dynamic approach to mastering English, one that combined enjoyment, practice, and real-life communication. This journey not only improved my language skills, but also expanded my worldview, connected me with people from diverse cultures, and gave me the confidence to continue learning, exploring, and using English in meaningful ways every day. Learning a language is not merely an academic pursuit. It is a living, breathing experience, and by embracing practical methods and active engagement, anyone can achieve remarkable progress. My story is proof that with curiosity, courage, and consistency, English, or any language, can be mastered step by step, one conversation, one thought, and one word at a time.